What's up guys, welcome back to my channel for another episode of On The Shelf, a show where I like to experiment with different posing and display options with my collection in the hopes to give you some ideas for your own displays. So if that's something that you're interested in, stick around because today I'm bringing to you my current and growing Iron Man collection. But before we get started, do us a favor, hit that like button, notification bell and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get to it. Okay guys, we'll kick it off with shelf number 1 dedicated to my Iron Man collection. 8 figures showcasing the beginning of Tony's journey. This shelf covers suits from Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, Avengers and Iron Man 3 with the Midas at the end. Firstly, this is not the final vision for this shelf as I am still to add the Mark IV, Mark VI and War Machine Mark I to go into the Iron Man 2 display, which is definitely going to change the whole dynamic of this shelf, but for now, this is how I'm using the space. Those that know me know that Iron Man is my favourite character and Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal is near and dear to me, so when it comes to collecting, Iron Man is my main focus of what I choose to collect. So let's zoom in and take a closer look at each figure as I touch on why it has a place in my collection. Starting off with the film that started it all, Iron Man 1. One of the best origin stories ever as far as I'm concerned. This was a film that reignited my fandom of comics, superheroes and storytelling. The hero's journey is told to perfection and brought together with boatfuls of wit and charm. It's a film I rewatch at least 2 to 3 times a year, so to have these 3 figures to represent it is so awesome. Once I get the construction piece in the Mark II, which I'm hoping they reissue, then my Iron Man 1 shrine will be complete. The Mark I. This is the new release with the die-cast helmet accessory, and I have to say I really love this piece. It's the first suit he built in a cave with a box of scraps, so that's awesome. But also for me, the whole sequence of Tony in the cave with Yinsen is so well done and really gets us invested in this journey Tony's about to go on as soon as he steps foot outside the cave. Having this figure takes me right back to those moments of the film. I love it. Now we have Mech Test Tony with dummy standing on the Mark I base here to give him a bit of extra height in the back. So when I view the shelf from front on, he's perched up in the middle to create a V-like formation on the shelf between these Iron Man 1 figures. I love this piece because all of Tony's moments where he's figuring stuff out and tinkering in his garage are favourites of mine. Not to mention you could argue that that moment where he finally and really decides to become Iron Man is when he's tinkering, watching the news, seeing what his weapons are still doing out in the world. He gets mad and he starts shooting up the room right before suiting up into the Mark III and going to kick their ass. This pose reminds me of that moment of realization. Moving on to the Mark III 2.0. What can I say? This is a great release. The base is fantastic with the Ironmonger represented, and along with the new body proportions, new head sculpt and damaged helmet accessory, this is the perfect piece to represent the end of the film and the birth of Iron Man and the MCU. The film truly did change the game and will always be my go-to comfort film. Us Iron Man collectors are lucky. We get all these amazing figures to represent all of Tony's great moments on our shelves. Love it. Moving on to my current Iron Man 2 display featuring the Mark V suit up and suitcase accessory front and center with Whiplash and the Mark V reissue on either side to the back, locked in battle. This section of the display is due to grow by 3 figures, as I will be adding the Mark IV, Mark VI and War Machine Mark I, which I'm looking forward to trying to blend in with this current setup. I think if I can do it right, the Iron Man 2 display is gonna be epic. The suitcase accessory is too good not to display, so I thought it would go nicely in front here. It's very intricate and I'm glad they gave it to us to have to complement the display. The Suit Up Mark V itself, whilst being quite difficult to piece together how the instructions tell you to, I personally think is worth it. That scene in the film is so iconic. When this got announced, in fact, I had this very vision for how I wanted this display to look, so I'm super hyped to finally see that idea come to life. Now, taking a look at Whiplash and the Mark V in the back here, I have them locked in battle with Tony grabbing the electric whips, working his way toward Ivan like he did in the film, right before he kicked his butt. I love this fight in the film, so I'm glad to be able to recreate it like this. You know, this display did take a bit of balancing to get it to hold, as Iron Man is in a very dynamic position without a stand to hold him, but we got there. Moving on to the Mark VII and Mark 21 Midas, which are the exact same body but with different paint jobs. The 7 is from the first Avengers film and the Midas is from Iron Man 3. This suit design is one of the best looking to me and one of Hot Toys' great engineering achievements to boot. I normally don't go for variant versions of suits as I'm collecting the cinematic versions of Iron Man mainly, but for a few figures I have made exceptions, and this is one of them. I love the shades of gold and the fact that it's a Mark 7 body. I had to get it to complement the Mark 7. Now, for the pose, I have him on the Mark 7 base, propped up high in the back with a clear riser underneath. I wanted to have him hovering high, so when I view it on the shelf I can see this hovering behind Tony in the Mark 7. I like that visual. The second Iron Man figure I ever purchased was this guy, the glorious Mark 7. This figure has so many posing options with switch out pieces to go along with fantastic articulation. It's an absolute beast. Not to mention the moments this represents from the film, from the epic suit up scene when Loki threw him out of the window to all the ass he kicked and all the humour and heart he brought to that final battle. This was the first time Tony makes that sacrifice play and accepts he's gonna die by taking that nuke up into the wormhole. That whole experience and events in Avengers fundamentally changes him heading into Iron Man 3. This pose to me reminds me of the weight of that burden put on Tony. Okay guys, shelf number 2, featuring 12 figures continuing Tony's journey to Endgame, starting from Avengers Age of Ultron and moving to Captain America Civil War, Spider-Man Homecoming, Infinity War and then Endgame, with a few other figures thrown in which I'll touch on as we zoom in. For this shelf, as I have multiple copies of a few of these guys, I have another 4 figures to fit on the shelf more than the first shelf, making the placement key to bringing them all together and giving every figure a space to shine when viewing the shelf as a whole. I think 12 is the max I'd try to squeeze in, as I do like to bring in Dio bases and do some dynamic poses, and I think if I were to try and add more figures, it just wouldn't work. Look at all that red and gold. Love it. Let's zoom in. From Avengers Age of Ultron, we have the Mark 43 and the Mark 45, with the 43 being the first Iron Man figure I ever purchased. I have him on his original base, interacting with the Ultron bot that came with the 45. I switched accessories with these guys as I wanted the 45 holding the lighter bot. These are the same poses I've had them in for ages as well, as I like how they play off each other with one high and one low. Continuing Tony's journey in this film, we see his paranoia come back when Wanda enchants him, which leads to him and Banner creating Ultron. This is key because the weight of the events of this film bring him to where he is in Captain America Civil War. I think this film is underrated, and don't forget we got to see Hulkbuster take on Hulk. How awesome was that? Stay tuned because I'll touch on where I have my Hulkbuster later in the video. Moving on to what I like to call the three brothers, the Mark 46 concept version, the actual Mark 46 from Civil War, and the Mark 47 from Spider-Man Homecoming. All the same suit design but with different paint jobs. I actually have a posing video out with all three of these guys together, so be sure to check that out if you haven't seen it after this video. Looking at the Mark 46 first. This really is one of my favourite suit designs and colour schemes. Now, for this pose, I wanted to make use of some key accessories that come with him, including the head sculpt with the bruised eye and battle damaged arc reactor. Then by throwing in Cap's shield to have Tony holding after Cap left it to him, for me is a way to remember the events of Civil War. Moving over to the Mark 46 concept. which was an alternate idea for Tony's suit color in the film, representing the more comic accurate look. I'm glad Hot Toys made this, and it's a great figure. This is one of those alternate figures that I knew I instantly wanted and had to add to my Iron Man collection. For the pose, it's nice and simple, just a classic repulsor pose, which I think works well in this space here. Now, onto the Mark 47 from Spider-Man Homecoming. Again, another beautiful color scheme. For his pose, I got him up in the air using the base that comes with the Mark 46, and I've done this because again, I wanted to make use of some key accessories like the open face empty helmet and the blast effects. By doing so, I can replicate the moment from the film when you realize Tony is remotely controlling the suit when talking with Peter. Okay guys, moving to the beginning of the Infinity War and Endgame portion of the display. First I'm going to focus on the Mark 50, which you can see I have two of here. Y'all know I'm crazy, but this figure is so versatile, it poses like a dream, it's very sleek and alien-like, which was very different to anything before it, and I love all that red. I also have the accessory pack with all the switch out pieces, and I think that really adds to the value of this figure, so I've tried to incorporate some of it here to showcase how much of a weapon this suit is. I will be moving one of these guys back to my Infinity War display eventually to have him fighting Thanos, because those two figures pair up so well together on the shelf. From the first suit up scene with it to the iconic fight against Thanos, this suit really showed us Tony's advances with technology. I tell you, when I watched it for the first time in the cinema and Thanos stabbed Tony, my heart dropped for real. Now, wrapping up the shelf with my Endgame shrine with 2 clean 85s, 2 battle damaged 85s, and my first kit bash Tony Stark. The conclusion to Tony's arc in Endgame was so bittersweet for me. On one hand, if you're gonna do it, what an epic way to send him off. But also sadness that I don't get to see more of a character and world I adore so much. There are very few characters in cinema that have had such an impact on me, whether it be wanting to be witty like Tony or heroic like Iron Man. These films mean a lot to me and are a part of my life, so be able to collect these amazing figures that connect me to that world a little more is so awesome. So let's look at the clean Mark 85s first. For this display, I'm going for one version grounded and one in the air behind it, as I like that look visually. I really love how this figure came out. It's muscular and athletic looking and has fantastic articulation. The backpack accessory is cool too, and is compatible with all the Mark 50 arm pieces from the accessory pack. Now let's move on to the battle damaged 85s. Of course I have this guy in the snap pose. I think if you have this figure, you have him in this pose. It's inevitable. I'd argue that this is one of the greatest moments I've ever experienced in a cinema. In fact, Infinity War and Endgame as a whole are two of the best experiences I've ever had in a cinema. It'd be criminal not to recreate the final heroic moment. Now, because of that, I had to do that, so I got another copy because I want to explore other poses and scenes with this version, like this pose here, just hovering in the back. And well, because it's bloody Iron Man, that's why. Then to cap off the shelf for now, we have my very first kit bash Tony Stark, using the Mark 50 head sculpt with the Mark 47 glasses from memory. I got a simple black tux with a basic body of 1/6 kit, and boom, we have the first of many kit bash Tony Starks to come. Okay, before we wrap it up, I still have a few more to show you guys that aren't in the module case, including the Comic Concepts Iron Man here, which I absolutely love. It copped a lot of flack when it came out due to the plastic, but it works for me. I did a showcase on this guy too, and it's so fun to pose, and when you play around with how the light bounces off him, he looks fantastic. Eventually, he'll join a part of the collection, maybe my comic book video game inspired shelf when I get to building that out. Moving on to the big boys, my Hulkbuster, quarter scale Mark IV with gantry, and Prodigal Son Mark 42 from Iron Man 3. Currently this is where these boys stay until I await some modu cases to house them, which I should be getting in the first quarter of next year. I'm also awaiting USB light up kits for all of these guys, which I should be getting in very soon from Fusion Reactors, so when I get that, these guys will be permanently lit up and I cannot wait for that. I'll most likely do a video on it as well, so stay tuned for that. Zooming in on the Hulkbuster, what else can I say? What an achievement for Hot Toys. This is the ultimate grail status for me. Absolutely love this piece and very blessed to have this guy. Looking at the Mark IV gantry now. Again, this guy is a showstopper. I've had this lit up with batteries when I first got him and it's something special. So many moving pieces, it has amazing presence in the room. Thing is with this suit, he looks so good it's almost a shame to have him covered up in the gantry. I'll probably switch it up every now and then and display him next to it sometimes to keep it fresh and admire the suit. Lastly, the Prodigal Son. This suit has special meaning to me as it represents Iron Man 3. I love that movie, purely for Tony's emotional arc in the film, overcoming his anxiety and realizing it's not the suit, it's him, the mechanic. He is Iron Man. And that's it, guys and girls. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of On the Shelf and maybe got some inspiration for your own displays. I thank you all for tuning in, and if you haven't already done so, do us a favor, hit that like button, notification bell, and subscribe to the channel. Memberships are available now, so if you'd like to support the channel, take a look and see if you'd like to join the Iron Legion. Lastly, we got reviews and unboxings, story-styled theme posing showcases, display tips and tricks, plus live streams including the rundown where we deep dive into film and TV. But for now, guys, until next time, I'm out.